It's a stunning privilege to be able to be a part of giving testimony to a life well lived. I graduated from Cardinal Glennon College together with Dennis. I spent a lot of time with him. What I remember the most is his incredible smile. It was almost like it was sculpted on his face. And the muscle memory for him was such that he would return to that smile more than to any other position of his face. And that seemed to be true when he was older as well. Even when he was in the hospital, I saw a picture of him with that same uncanny smile on his face. Dennis was a beautiful man, and members of the family and his friends are going to talk a little bit more about that in a while. What I was asked to do is to reflect on the mystery of death, because it's appropriate that we stop when someone has died and just give ourselves time to let it all sink in. I don't know if you're aware of it. I wasn't until the last few years, but they say that elephants have been doing some of the things that we do at funerals since human beings appeared on the planet. So when an elephant dies, apparently the one who notices it first will let out a trumpet call. And from miles around, other elephants who knew that elephant will come to, shall we say, pay their respects. We don't know, because we don't speak elephant. We can only watch what they do. And what they do is just like what we do when there's a body lying in front of us at a wake, and we all slowly walk by the body. We might reach out and touch the body. We sometimes go in family groups, and we just pause. One animal researcher who was talking about this phenomenon among elephants said that the amazing thing is that elephants are so ridiculously busy. They spend 20 hours a day foraging for food and eating, much busier than most of us are. I think we'd have to admit that. And yet, for some reason, when someone dies, when one of their own dies, they stop and they pay attention. They pause. Life slows down. And it's not hard. We can't put ourselves on top of them and pretend that they're human beings. They're not. We just need to keep wondering, what is it like for them? But we know that when we stop and look at the same thing and do what they do, which is to slowly run their extremities over the body, stand there almost like they're stunned, taking it all in, showing signs of affection, that when we do that, we're trying to take it all in and understand what's happening here. What is happening? But there's also a sense that we're standing in front of something that is happening, and something that is quite natural. And so we don't just look at it in shock, although we'll do that, but we also look at it as if there's something here to be learned, something deep to be taken in. And I'm not trying to put any doctrine or dogma on top of this. Please don't hear that. I'm just trying to speak about the human experience of having someone we love die and what that is like for us. Because there's a lot to be learned about God from simply paying attention to what is happening with us. Usually when we stop and put all of the rest of our important life aside, it's because something is going on that we need to pay attention to. And when we're stripped down in this way and are experiencing loss, and we feel like every part of us is just sort of breaking apart for a moment with the pain of loss, when all of that finally falls to the ground like clothes we don't want to be wearing, and we just stand there in the utter nakedness of what we are looking at in our humanity for what it is, we start noticing, almost like what's going on with a lot of us during COVID, we start noticing things about ourselves we never saw before because so much of life is falling away. And what the ancient people of prayer of many different traditions will tell us is that when we do this, the spiritual giants of the ages attest to this, when we just allow it all to fall away, the only thing that is remaining is something that cannot fall away. Some part of our humanity that is not something we make happen. It comes as naturally to us as our breathing. And when everything falls away, there really isn't a lot there. But if we pay really close attention, what we see is something that we might give the word hope to, like some little pilot light that's burning inside of us when nothing else seems to be happening. It's a kind of a flowing inside, it's described as something that feels like it's moving, and it kind of encourages us to move. So this thing which we cannot ever really give ourselves and yet is never not a part of us, when we pay attention to it, is like seeing the face of God. Why? Because as one amazing monk, Thomas Merton, says, when we see things like this, it's like looking at the roots of all of creation. We're right at the tap root of it all. And it's amazing. Now, if I'm sounding too mystical or like somebody who's lived too long in a monastery or something like that, which, by the way, I never have, but I do try to pray a little bit, and maybe it just would be easy to brush off what I'm saying as though that sounds like what a priest would say. But if I really want to open up for you what happens to us when someone dies. So let's assume for a moment that we're in great grief. And even if you're not in great grief over Dennis right now, you know what grief is like. So let me use this as a point. When we're weeping and sad for a loss, it is a pain. It is something we would rather not be experiencing. But as if we allow ourselves to go deeper and deeper toward that pilot light I was talking about, what starts to happen is all of a sudden we shift and we see that the reason we are crying is because of how much we love this person. And the love for that person comes to the foreground and becomes something beautiful. But then again, it's almost like a spiral. The minute we see how beautiful it is and we remember that we've lost that, then we go back into the pain. But the pain brings us down to seeing the love again. And so we go into this cycle of we've lost something, but what we've lost is beautiful and it's inspiring, but we've lost it. And we do this often enough that we settle in on how beautiful the love is and we move to gratitude. These are all things that we cannot give ourselves. This bubbles up inside of us. It wouldn't surprise me if it, on some level, bubbles up inside of elephants and other parts of this amazing creation when one of their own, with whom they are tremendously bonded, is now gone. And so the experience of death, hard as it is, can actually be an experience of the most beautiful gifts that God is able to give us in this life if we stay with it and live with it and lean into it rather than hide from its discomfort. This is meant to be an experience of that second reading that Charlie read. A lot of times we talk about this reading as if it's talking about death in the abstract or what happens after in the afterlife. And that's a nice application, but it's not the one I want to point to tonight. I want you to see this reading as talking about what I just shared with you, that at every moment, no matter how hard a death is, no matter how hard a loss is, no matter how hard COVID is, no matter how hard all the things our country is experiencing right now might be, that underneath it all is a pilot light that will not shut off. And if we pay attention to it, then we can say with Paul, the eye has not seen, nor has ear heard the amazing things that God has in store for those who walk with God. We just need to learn how to open up the interior of our souls to be able to see what God is offering us. I was asked to share about the meaning of death. I hope that this little reflection is helpful. At the same time, I really look forward to everyone sharing about the great memories that they have had of Dennis.